Well, hey, friends, this is the multiple number of takes, and I just want to say to you, I am praying for marriages, and I think this subject is so important. And technology is failing, and it's getting frustrating. But I say it's worth talking about when you find that old chair in the thrift store. You need to walk away from it, and somebody says, and you strip off that layer too, and eventually you get down to the basics. You get down to where it's stripped down to the very core, that great oak chair. And yeah, it's got some dings and whatever. Originally, going back to the original is often the best technique to get the most value. Well, it's interesting that Jesus in Mark chapter 10 is being fussed with by the Pharisees, and they come after him. The Pharisees came in order to test him and ask, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? And they're trying to trick Jesus. They're trying to catch him, but he's so careful. He answers them, what did Moses to the law? And after the 10 Commandments, he wrote it in such a way that if you're going to get divorced, do this. One of the James A. Brooks writes, the provision, this is what Deuteronomy 24:1 is, the provision was made as an attempt to limit human sinfulness. What is Brooks trying to get at? He's saying, look, Jesus makes this statement, Moses allowed you. This is an allowance situation. Moses has written a layer, a case law on top of what God has written. Again, by inspiration, don't get me wrong. It's not, you were hard-hearted. You were so calloused in your heart. You wanted only what you wanted. And so Moses had to give you a repair. Moses had to give you if you're bent on doing this, this is how you do it without doing more damage. As you think about this, what is Jesus saying? Look, he's saying you need to go back before us. He wasn't saying because of your hardness of heart, Pharisees, Moses wrote something beforehand. Although the hardness of heart of the Pharisees is a common topic for Jesus. It's the thing that causes them not to be able to believe. It causes them to be angry with the truth. It causes them to be triggered and be resisting of God. It causes them to sin against each other. Of marriage rather than stay in it. They were looking for an escape hatch. Again, James R. Edwards wrote this, you don't learn to fly an airplane by following the instructions for making a crash landing. You will treat. The same is true of marriage and divorce, right? So many times we're looking for ways to throw it off or to get out of marriages. These people, the Pharisees here, were trying to say, is it okay if we divorce our wives? Is it okay if we cut off this relationship? And Jesus says, no, go back. And they said, well, yeah, actually, technically, there's a provision made. And he says, no, that was made because of your hardness of heart. Let's go back beyond that. This is pre-provision. This is even before Moses. Jesus says, let's go back before Moses ever came and gave the law. Let's go back before the law was ever given. Let's go all the way back before the fall, right? How is it that we have relational differences, allowance for the hardness of their heart? You're acting in all the way back to Adam and Eve, a discord is happening inside. But Jesus says, but rather than go to the law, rather than go to the provision, rather than go for this allowance, go all the way back to the beginning of creation. God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold. The hardness of your and female are bound together. Remember, God said it's not good for man to be alone, so he created a female. He created a partner, perfect partner, and he created them to be married, to be two becoming one. But instead, we ought to be fighting for our marriages. We ought to be fighting to stay in them rather than get out of them. So often, the legal divorce, the piece of paper, the certificate of divorce, is a last part that references or reflects what's already happened. Who have no longer become one flesh, but they've been ripped apart by a wound, by an offense, by a sin, by a series of sins, sometimes even by abuse. Let me just say here for a moment that if you are in an abusive situation, separation from that abusive situation may be your first option, your best option. Get away, get out of, get to safety. It's part of the game plan I'm going to give you here in a moment. But those people that are in abusive situations, divorcing is not always the answer. There's you need to fight for reconciliation. But if there is none, there has been an allowance made. Write the certificate of divorce and be done. There's already wounding going on. There's already damage being done. There may be no recovery. But don't be hurried. Don't be in a rush. Let me give you those things that I talk about often with people. Often when people come to me and they say, Pastor, my marriage is in a shambles. I've come for counseling. Usually they've come for counseling as a last-ditch effort. They've already got the divorce papers written up, and they've just got to exhaust all avenues. Let's just check the box that we've been to counseling. But what I'm talking about is get some counseling, some biblical counseling, and accountability. Find some other marriages that are doing well and ask them some questions. Get some counsel from them. Literally be discipled in how to be married. You may need to, secondly, separate for a season, but for the purpose of strengthening yourself. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed when we're in the middle of the argument and the fuss and the cantankerous that we just need to take some space and get some health ourselves so we can see it better. Sometimes we send our kids to the rooms when they're after they've been fighting. Send your kids to your rooms so they can have some time out to think about what you did. And then you bring them back together and you work on it. The same way in a marriage. Sometimes get biblical counsel and accountability. Separate for a season to get stronger yourself, to be able to strengthen the covenant, come back stronger. And then third, begin to restore the saltiness in yourself. And then in the marriage, seek forgiveness. Look for ways to repair and reconcile and restore the marriage. Fight for it. It's worth it. Go back to the basics. A man and a woman together, bound together, so that there's nothing that can separate them, so they can be put back together. Gluing the pieces back together is better than turning your back on the marriage. Salvation actually makes this possible. You say, it's not possible. You don't know my spouse. While there's breath, while the gospel is true, grace can be given and restoration. One man, one woman for life. Again, you do it. Friends, I want to encourage you. If you're in a marriage that you're not sure is worth fighting for, let me just say your marriage is worth fighting for. It's God's original intention is for life. It's worth. Look for ways that you can literally grow again, be ready to serve again, finding forgiveness. Stop trying to win or be the best or be on top or be dominant. Stop trying to be right. Always right. Instead, choose to be right with your partner, with your spouse, with the person that God has given you. Restore that. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for marriages everywhere. The fact that I've had so much trouble recording this message encourages me that I'm on the right track. Fight for your marriage. Don't turn your back just because it's an ugly green color. Strip that stuff away. Begin to break down those offenses that have layered up and made it so ugly and so hideous. Get back to the basics. What is God's intention? What is God's plan? Seek somebody who can help you and work at it. Work hard at it. Marriages are worth fighting for. Friends, I'm praying for you. I love you. And I want to see your marriage be successful and whole. I want to see it be a perfect example of what it is to be salted in the gospel and to be flavorful and preserving the marriage. Well, until I see you tomorrow, friend, work at your marriage. Work hard at it. It's worth fighting for. I believe it. I hope you believe it too. I'll see you tomorrow.